Mighty God, we ask for your guidance and direction as we come together to meet. Grant us the strength to manage the challenges ahead and the wisdom to identify these as opportunities as we strive to serve the citizens of Crescent Springs. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Patrick Hackett.
Here.
Chad Longbonds.
Here.
Carter Dickerson. Christy Arlinghouse.
Here.
Vince Albanese. Bob Mueller.
Here.
Okay. We have the agenda. Thanks. Okay, next item is Jim Sparrow, the auditor.
You want to approve the minutes for me?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Next. Approval of the minutes for December 10th, 2018. Council members.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of December 10th, 2019.
Christie's made a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Chad, second.
Carter Dick. Oh, I'm sorry. Christy Arlinghouse.
Yes.
Bob Mueller.
Yes.
Patrick Hackett.
Yes.
Chad Longbonds.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Okay. Now, Jim.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm here to present the audited financial statements for the year ended June 30th, 2018. And I believe everyone should have a copy. Beginning on page 1 is the independent auditor's report, which is our report on your financial statements, and I'll just give you the highlights of what this says. I know we have new council members here tonight, so congratulations. First paragraph indicates that we have audited the financial statements for the year ended June 30th, 2018. The second paragraph indicates that management is responsible, and that's you all, for the preparation and fair presentation of these financial statements in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States. Our responsibility is to express opinions on these financial statements based on our audit. And at the very bottom of the page, we believe that the audit evidence that we have obtained is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for our audit opinions. And at the very top of page 3, in our opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position and changes in financial position for the year that ended in conformity with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States. This is called an unqualified opinion, which means there were no qualifications or exceptions relative to our opinion on your financial statements, the highest level of opinion that a CPA firm renders on financial statements. So everything is good. Beginning on page 5 is the section of the audit report that is called Management's Discussion and Analysis. This is a representation of management relative to giving a reader of the financial statements an overview of certain numbers, financial numbers out of the financial statements and other explanations. So beginning with financial highlights, the second paragraph on page 5, the city's cash balances increased $68,472 compared to the prior year, and the total fund balances increased $95,975. When we get to the financial statements, we'll see those numbers. Revenues from taxes increased by $39,810, as well as revenue from payroll, insurance, and license fees increased by $194,057. Overall expenditures increased $107,937, spread out over all departments, but there was a decrease in capital outlay and debt payment during the year. So those would be the highlights of the financial outcome of the year. I will skip over to page 8. In the MD&A is the one place within the audit report where it does give you a comparison, in this case revenues and expenditures, between 2017 and 2018. So total revenues were $2,740,000, the right-hand column, for 2018 compared to $2,506,000 for 17. So that was an increase in revenues of $240,000 approximately. Taxes accounted for $40,000 of that increase, and licenses and permits, $183,000. Licenses and permits are primarily your payroll and earnings tax, and I believe the insurance premium is in that category also. Under expenditures, total expenditures for 2018 were $2,645,000 compared to $2,537,000, or $108,000 increase, probably about a 5% increase over the prior year. As was indicated earlier, it's kind of spread over each of the departments. Your debt service went down from $61,000 to $39,000. And when we get to the next page, I'll mention about the debt service. Turning to page 9, about a third of the way down, general fund budget highlights. The revenues were $72,000 more than the budget, mainly due to increases in licenses and permits. Expenditures were $17,000 less than budgeted, which ended with a increase in the fund balance of $89,784, a combination of those two numbers. So expenditures were less than you had budgeted and revenues were more, so that's a good outcome. Wanted to mention debt just a little further down on page 9. The city at the end of 6/30/18 just had $34,816 in outstanding debt, and those were on vehicles that were purchased recently. So the city is very fortunate that you really have no significant debt. So congratulations. I'll turn quickly and just kind of those numbers I was reading off, be able to show them to you in the financial statements. If you go to page 13, the city's total cash at June 30th, 18, the very top line, $1,719,676. So that was the cash available at the end of the fiscal year. And if you go about midway down the page under fund balances, your fund balance, $1,925,474. So most of your fund balance is made up of cash. You have a small amount of receivables and payables. On page 14, statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances. Total revenues were $2,740,000. Expenditures $2,645,000. So you had an excess of revenues over expenditures of $95,975. And then adding that to the beginning fund balance, so the very bottom number, right-hand column, $2,009,000 is your fund balance at the end of the year. So that would be an amount that you would have available going into the current fiscal year. The only other thing I'll mention is back on page 43. As the city is a relatively small city, has a relatively number of people that are in the working in the finance area. Always in that circumstance, the lack of an ability to have segregation of duties is always an issue, and we talked about this. I previously met with the finance committee. It was last year's finance committee, I think. And we usually talk about that and some things that you can do. The mayor being active in signing checks, and his participation is important. You usually have someone, one or two people that are involved, especially in reviewing the bank reconciliation. So typically a finance committee member has volunteered to help do that. So there are some things that we've talked about over the years to try to overcome the weakness, if you will, of the segregation of duties. So We do not have anything new to report this year. That would conclude my report, Mayor. If there are any questions, be glad to
Any questions?
try to answer them.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you very
so
much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Next item, Jeff, Fire Authority.
Good evening. April was nice enough to send out the yearly report for me. So I'll go over those numbers real quick. There was 1,406 dispatches for 2018. That's an increase of 112. As usual, the runs increase about 10% every year. So both fire and ambulance were at an all-time high once again. Our odd stat this year was a $1.3 million loss. A community our size usually averages around $600,000. But we lost a $1.2 million home in Little Hills. It was struck by lightning and had burned for 2 hours before we were called. So that fire was a total loss. That's not the complete reason for the large loss. We did have a house fire on River Road that was a total loss due to lack of water. If it was not for those two, we would be in the same average where we usually are, about $70,000 loss for the year. Our average dispatch to on-scene time is 4 minutes. We made 77 ambulance calls to Bromley, who we contract with. That's pretty much it for the year-end report. I know that the hot topic tends to be the drug overdoses. St. E's put out a statistic that for the first time in 5 or 6 years that they were reduced, and that is true, that they did go down some. However, what we're seeing a lot more of is we treat the patient on scene with Narcan, and then they refuse to go to the hospital. So that's why the statistic is coming down, is because they're refusing. It's still a problem, a big problem. Some questions about the staffing of the second ambulance. So right now, during the hours of 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., there's two paramedics at the fire department and 6 or 8 EMTs. So during that time period, it's covered 100% for both ambulances. Where we're having a problem is the nighttime. So that the second ambulance is covered by volunteers, and we don't have a volunteer paramedic most times to cover that. So the increased funding, which is about $90,000, would be to pay for the paramedic at night. So we would have 24/7. We would have both ambulances ALS. A little background on the firehouse project. Christy and Patrick, they got to see the firehouse firsthand. I think it's a little bit of an eye opener. If you haven't been there for a while, it needs some serious work. A realistic number is around $4.5 million to $5 million. The land is the easy part. We've got plenty of land behind the firehouse. We can put a new station behind there. Most of the damage we've done to the trucks over the last 30 years that I've been there are from backing equipment back into the firehouse with a door open or a light tower up. So the plan with this new firehouse would be to come in off of Western Reserve, you pull through the firehouse, then as we get calls, you pull out on the overlook and out on the buttermilk. That way there's no backing equipment in. That's going to reduce our damage to equipment by quite a bit.
Okay.
I brought Jim Cahill along to offer any financial support. Jim is the finance guy for the fire authority. And if you have any questions.
Okay, is there any more talk about the fire district?
I think we can talk about a fire district. I think what happens when we go to a fire district is you guys lose control. Right now, the way the fire authority works is Villa Hills and Crescent Springs has the majority of the say. If we go to a fire district, then there's board members appointed by the judge, and then the judge is the one or the board members decide. So it's a possibility. The fire department is not opposed to going to a fire district or even given up the land to the city for the fire department. I
Is
think,
somebody pushing the issue?
no, it's not being pushed. It's just, there needs to be a way to fund a new firehouse. And we can almost triple our budget if we went to a fire district and charged the full amount, which is $2 a thousand. However, once you've reached the $2, then you're done. There's fire districts in Kenton County that are really struggling because they're at the $2 and they can't get any more money. And with the way departments of local governments are, you have to prove every dime that you spend, and $2 is the max. So I don't think we're ready to go down that road yet. I think there's funding options through both cities that we can look at.
Okay.
Is that something you guys
Any
would
questions?
consider a bonded project? I mean, would you sell bonds to do that kind of a project, or?
I really think the two councils are gonna have to establish some kind of a committee to get together and talk about these things, because a fire district is one option, but another option is just staying the way we are and trying to pay for that thing over 30 years or 40 years, whatever we can get. But I really think if we give up control, I don't know if you guys want to, but nobody in Villa Hills really wants to give up control over the fire authority at this point. And that's something I think if we can establish a committee between the two cities, we also have our mayor here as well, so.
Sure.
But we could talk about establishing a committee where both cities are represented.
We'll do that.
Yeah.
I think a couple options that were thrown out there were the franchise fee, possibly going to fund the fire department. Since Crescent Springs already has that established, Villa Hills could also look at that. Some of the other options were increasing the insurance premium tax.
Yeah.
So there's different ways to fund it. It's just going to take a little bit of maneuvering.
Okay.
I'd like to add, if any council member hasn't been through the fire department building in recent times, Chad, you ought to go take a look. There's definitely a need. There's holes in the ceiling, holes in the walls. It's, the tracks of the garage doors look like they're rusted.
So our 6 people that are there tonight sleep in beds that are in a meeting room like this, so the bed flips up into the wall, and it's not an ideal. It was never designed in 1975 for a paid fire department. It was designed for volunteers. So we've outgrown it by 20 years or so.
Like the shower facilities, they're just sorely lacking.
Okay. Any other questions? Anybody? Okay. Thanks,
Thanks,
Ken.
Steve.
Thanks, Jeff.
And I guess I'll be back every month?
Yep.
Okay.
We hope so. Okay. Okay, finance report, Nick and Matt. Oh,
You have something to prepare? Okay, I don't have anything to prepare, other than just to say, in the interest of time, wasn't going to give a full report given the audit review that you just went through. But we'll give a update on the 6-month through 12/31 statement at the caucus meeting. And Mayor, I didn't know if you wanted me to talk about, I see it on the agenda for the streetlights, or do you mean to wait until it gets to that section?
you can talk about it now.
Okay. So one of the questions that has come up also about using the franchise fee is the possibility of replacing a number of our streetlights with LED lighting. So Duke Energy has provided a proposal to do 2 sections of street light replacement. They call one of them the Anderson Road / South Buttermilk, and then they say another project is kind of north of Buttermilk Pike. I have some of the preliminary data, but haven't been able really to complete my analysis, and I explain why, because it's really difficult to figure out which light poles we're replacing. So the proposal that came from Duke Energy just says, hey, on this one you're going to have 30 poles, and they're going to cost this new fee, so here's the total. And on the second one, they're going to be 16 poles, and here's the new fee, and here's what it's going to cost. To figure out the time frame of payback, you have to figure out what you're replacing. So it is quite a challenge looking at the Duke Energy bills as to exactly what pole we're replacing, because they don't have names or numbers. My next step is to get with the individuals from Duke to have them specifically tell me which poles are going away. And I want to do that just from the standpoint of figuring out the difference in the cost savings of the poles. So if the old pole is X and the new pole is Y, I can come up with a difference and then figure how long it's going to pay that back. And it does make a difference because on the what they call the Anderson Road in South Buttermilk, if I just use an average pole cost of $15 today, so pole costs range anywhere from $8 to $20 based on the current bill we got for November. If I just kind of use around a $15 number, the Anderson Road South Buttermilk project, in theory, pays for itself in about 13 years. If we did a one lump sum payment, just paid the $50,000, it pays for itself in about 13 years. That's probably okay to swallow. That's not that hard of a conversation. However, the North Buttermilk Pike, which is actually smaller number of poles, again, using that same $15 number, the savings just aren't that great, and it actually takes 55 years to get payback. That seems a little difficult to swallow. So I think it does make a difference, making sure we use the right numbers, and we're looking at the right poles, because that's a big swing from 13 to 55. So that's the data I have. I don't have it finalized yet. I need to get with the Duke Energy guys to have them explain to me which poles they're physically replacing. So it's about 46 poles in total, 30 for one project, 16 for another.
Okay.
What's the useful life of one of those lights?
So-
Is anything like that?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. The LED obviously would be significantly longer than the halogen ones or the gas ones they have today. And it also depends on what kind of contract that we have on different poles. So some of them are full maintenance, so if it goes out, they come replace it, no cost to us. Other ones, if we buy them outright and we own them, they go out, then we have to pay for the replacement. So, it's kind of hitting home because right in front of, on Buttermilk here, there's a pole that went down, right? It got sheared off, right? So if we had paid for that pole ourselves, and we're paying to put it back up. Those, I believe, are currently under maintenance, so they have to put that back up, but their conversation is the age of those poles, they're having trouble getting inventory. So those poles don't necessarily just sit in a warehouse, they just grab another one. They have to go find it. So that's the story I've heard. I don't know if you know anything different than that, Jerry.
Every time I've ever seen one go down, it takes them a while to find one.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So
Are these projects dependent on each other, or could we literally do one, not the other?
absolutely, as I rated, you absolutely could do one, not the other.
Can we
Yep.
piecemeal it? I mean, can we say, okay, this pole, not that pole, this pole?
Good question. I don't know the answer to that one. But the way the proposal was written, they were written as two different projects. One for 30 poles, one for 16, but they were independent of each other.
Okay.
Now, if you went in and specifically said, I'm sure they could rewrite the proposal and say, hey, if we just want to do these 5 and not those 10, we could probably do that. But, yeah. So, Mayor, I didn't know if you wanted anybody from council to be in that meeting when I'm with Duke, if it's in person or on the phone, we can easily do a conference call. Or I can just come bring back the information I find. So
Yeah, you can bring back the information.
Okay. I can do that. That's what I had. Nick, I don't know if you had anything else. No? Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
All
Matt.
right, thank you. Matt, thank you, Nick.
Thank you for staying on the committee. I think a lot of what you heard in that audit report's the result of your work.
Yeah. All right. Brian, police report?
I'll be brief also. Just looking at this last month's number through December, we did have an increase in calls, but it was just kind of a fluke part of the year. But nothing really major stood out. So it was just a higher number of calls. We have a closing rate of our cases at 92.5%, which is a good number to go with. Other than that, we're working with the owner of Terracotta to clean up that address. He's evicted the tenants there. We have made another arrest on that, a burglary arrest. So that's now 6 total from that. Those cases are going forward through the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. But he is cleaning it out, getting it ready to re-rent it or whatever, but he's gutting the whole place, is what my understanding is. So we're working with him on that.
Good.
Other than that, it's been, knock on wood, right now it's been a fairly quiet first part of this
That's the way we
month,
like it,
knock on
quiet.
wood. So we are currently working with that. I did do the yearly report, just a general incident. Everything is about on pace as where I would expect it with the addition of Crescent Springs. There's nothing really jumps out and says there's any issues. Any questions on anything on that, real quick, and then I'll go into a couple things. We did, if you've read the paper, we have found a canine, canine Onyx. We've sent the money in. We're waiting for his arrival sometime in the next couple of weeks, I hope. I gotta get some more information on it. He's coming from Czechoslovakia. It's a black 22-month-old German
Doesn't speak
Shepherd.
English.
Doesn't speak English, speaks German or Czechoslovakian, I think. I'm not sure. But we're excited about this new addition, so hopefully we'll have our canine unit on the street by May sometime, May, June, is what my anticipation is. So,
But I would, for the folks that are new to council, that was part of what we saw in the proposal that we put out, was that some of the departments that were bidding, had canines. And I think, that was something we talked about in the review of the submission from Villa Hills. And Brian pretty early on said, this is something we would like to eventually get to the point of being able to offer. So I think he's just simply followed through on something he mentioned that far back.
yes, and our old council and our new council have been very supportive of the idea. It is a dual-purpose dog. It will do patrol work and it will do drugs, so it will do both. So, but once we get them on, we'll display them and show them off a little bit. But we're excited. And Officer Dooley's excited also.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Why do we have to go all the way to Czechoslovakia?
That's just where the dog was.
I
I go through a
but
breeder.
Don't they train them here in the United States?
They do, but I can tell you, as a former, I've trained German Shepherds, I've competed German Shepherds, and you have an American Shepherd and you have a German Shepherd. The German Shepherd dogs are usually the better dogs. They're just more stout dogs. They have better training on them.
Okay.
And the people I go through the dogs have already got the imprint on them, so we take a lot of the work out of it. The dog you're going to get is from a great bloodline. That means it's a really good dog. The chances of something going wrong with the dog is very slim. A lot of the shepherds have the issue with their hips and joints. This dog has already been inspected, it's been certified through Germany, where we get the dog. We just happened to get it in Germany. We could have got the same dog if we found it in the United States. It just depends on where you find the dog and where your contacts are. This dog, I can tell you, is going to be an outstanding dog. It's going to be a good service dog. We'll have it a good 7 to 8 years, and it will do exactly what we train. It'll have a good imprint on it. The trainer we're going with, he's certified dogs for the last 30 years. He's worked the dog, and every dog we got through Covington was with this gentleman. I've never had a bad dog out of him yet. He's very good at what he does. The dog will also be certified in Schutzen, which is a German working dog. He will also be certified through NAPWADA, which is the National Working Dog Association. I think that's what it is. I'm not sure. Anyway, it's a nationwide certification that says it's kind of like if I go to the academy, I meet these standards. Well, this dog's going to meet these standards. Once you get all this training on the dog, the certification on the dog, basically you're going to walk in the court and nobody's going to challenge your dog. As long as your dog and your handler are well trained and can show a consistent pattern of success, you're not going to get questioned, which knocks a lot out. Also, we're going to write a new policy for the dog, and that'll take a lot of liability out of the city if something goes wrong. If we have a bite, as long as we're following a well-written policy that's been vetted by the lawyers, we should have no issues in court. I just go with people I know. I can tell you the dog you're going to get is going to be a great dog. If the dog drops dead the next day, he'll refund us the money and give us another dog. This guy knows his stuff. He's very good at the dog. That's just happened to be where we went and got it. I mean, I could have found it in Canada or down in Tennessee. Just some of these dogs, you got to be careful what you get because you're going to pay for what you get. So it might be a little less money, but then it's not going to be guaranteed. This dog's going to be guaranteed. So,
And how old's the dog?
22 months.
Okay.
So it's about the right age to be ready. It'll actually train the handler completely.
Train and check.
It'll train the handler and check. He'll tell the handler what he wants him to do.
Okay.
So.
All right. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Public Works, Dewey.
We got all the Christmas decorations down, put away for the season. We closed up the park and winterized everything up there. Christmas tree recycling is going on down at Park and Ride until January the 16th. That'll be the last day. I had a Duke Energy representative meet me up at the park today. There's some trees along the fence line between the neighbors and us that's got the ash borer bug on them. And so we went down through there and he marked them, and Duke Energy's gonna take them out free of charge because their lines are close to them. And all the other trees are in pretty good shape. They're just worried about the ones that had the bug in them. He showed us the bug holes in the deterioration in the trees, so they're gonna take that down probably in the next couple of weeks. They'll leave the wood there for us, and then they'll mulch up the branches and stuff and haul that away for us.
Okay.
And then the big snow we had a couple of trucks slide off the road, had to have them pulled back up, and then we had two of the trucks go down, blew lines on them. I got one of them fixed, and we're working on the other one. Other than that, everything I thought went pretty well for as much snow as we had.
Yeah, did a good job
That's all
covering.
I have.
Okay, thanks, Dewey. Okay, mayor's report. Everybody was sent to bring the newer people and the older people on all the projects that are going on in the city. Yeah, I was gonna go through it, but it would take too long. So, I mean, if you got any questions, you know, give us a call and we can talk about it. But it lists everything that's up to date that's coming to the city or has already been in, yeah.
Thank you for this.
I think it was, is that what was sent to you,
Yes.
email? Okay, because that's the latest. There was one earlier version of it, but that's all I have on that. Let's see. I guess we're gonna delay these, or,
I would think so until Matt has his meeting with Duke.
yeah. Let's see, we'll delay that to the caucus meeting. Municipal order for agreement with Duke Energy. Agreement with Duke Energy for installation of the LED lights on Anderson. We'll push that to the caucus meeting. The next item is the $20,000 request from Villa Hills for traffic reconstruction at intersection of Buttermilk and Collins. Greg?
Thank you, Your Honor. To bring the new council members up to speed during the last budget process, the City of Villa Hills respectfully requested $20,000 to assist us in the replacement and resignalization of the Collins and Buttermilk intersection. That intersection is a very busy intersection, but it's not entirely within the City of Villa Hills. A portion of it is inside the city of Crescent Springs. Therefore, we don't have the ability to do the whole project ourselves. Also, traffic studies that were done, traffic impact studies that were done in connection with the sanctuary development showed that 20% of the projected future traffic that would flow through the intersection is going to be coming off of Meadowwood in the back end of Sierra. So that's Crescent Springs. And but the big secret is that 75% of the existing, or 75% of the future problem traffic is existing traffic. So we know the intersection's a problem. It's got a skew to it so that it's not a perpendicular intersection. It's more of an X than it is across. And as such, there's a lot of side impact crashes for people who are trying to turn left either direction versus oncoming traffic. The proposal does split phase Western Reserve and Collins so that the two sides don't move at the same time. It also has a double left turn off of Collins, which will help remove a lot of the queue that builds up on Collins that blocks Kramer and sometimes even Cecilia and Frank. So that would be a good benefit. At the time that this was adopted, it was put in the budget, but it was also made contingent on council making the actual authorization to go ahead and move forward on it. And so I was asked to be here tonight because this got onto the agenda. Mr. Mueller asked that I provide a timeline for the project. According to the engineer that we've hired, that's Bear Becker, Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, the project can be completed in approximately 6 months from now. That does let it slip over into the new fiscal year, and so I called and talked with the project point person, Katie Dillenberger at Bear Becker, and said, is there any way we can crash the schedule so that we can complete it within the fiscal year? Because we have it budgeted for this fiscal year, and so do you. So we'd like to get it done in this fiscal year. We have a couple of opportunities to make up about a month, maybe even 6 weeks of time, depending on if everything goes our way. I'm sure some things won't go our way, so it's going to be tight, but I'm confident that we can get it done with the project. And so once again, we respectfully request your support and help in getting that intersection done. It is a big quality of life issue, not only for Villa Hills residents, but also for everyone who lives back off of Sierra in the Crossings neighborhood.
Okay, is there a possible start date on this?
Again, it rolls through. It looks like construction would start sometime near the end of May if we didn't get any cuts during the time period. The couple sections where we might be able to get back some of that time and start the project sooner will be if the second review is not necessary. Right now, we've submitted the initial plans and the material list to the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, and they can either just sign off on it, and at that point that saves us a month, or they can go, no, we want some revisions, and at that point it can take 2 to 4 weeks to get that approval back up. And then another place we can cut is when we advertise and receive bids. Since that's in our hands, we can push that section a little bit faster compared to other sections, and we can get that done probably within the month versus within the 6 weeks.
Bob, you want to bring us up to date, since we have a couple new members, on where we're at on this, when what we did in the previous council, bring us up to date on it?
Sure, absolutely. I wanted to ask Craig, what is the total project cost and the sources of funding?
Okay. So, like all good projects, estimates are estimates, and then you start out and then you start to actually get some of the hard costs in, and it grows a little bit. The initial cost that we received from the state said, oh yeah, $100,000, no problem. So that's what the 80-20 split was based off of, and we're going to stick to that. Since that time, there's been some additional $35,000 worth of engineering costs that have been added to it. There's potential for some additional costs with tattoo striping and lane markings that might be part of the project, and we have asked the state for a $50,000 discretionary support from Frankfurt. I have not heard on the status of that application quite yet, but the other, but $100,000 has been budgeted in the City of Villa Hills budget and is available for use on this project.
So Transportation Cabinet for the 85, it's over and above the 100, is what you're thinking?
Well, we've asked them for 50.
Okay, 50 to 85.
Yeah, and then we have some savings in other projects that we might be able to use. And again, some of these costs might come in lower. We just really don't know until it's actually bid out and we get the price. We are using the state's material list, so that's pretty set. It just depends on how much the state wants us to put in.
Sure. I think, if you lived here more than a week, you kind of know that intersection is busy. I'll just put it at that. I think we were sort of surprised when we saw some of the traffic accident data surrounding that intersection. It was lower than a lot of people anticipated. But I think I compared it to if you manage this like the air traffic controllers, if you counted near misses, it would be through the roof.
Yeah.
So I think we've been lucky to have dodged a number of fatalities at that intersection. It's long overdue for the re-signaling and realignment that Craig talks about. Our previous council sort of had the same discussion, like here's what we think it'll cost. Craig took the time with Brian, I think, to do some of the traffic studies to justify the percentage that they were asking Crescent Springs to contribute. As exact as you can get those numbers, you know, it felt like a fair estimate and a fair request. The prior council agreed to the line item for the project, but I think in the resolution or whatever it was that we passed to commit that, there was a caveat put in there that council would have to then vote whenever the time came to actually authorize the money to go towards the project. I believe that would take some sort of formal action to release that money, because I agree with Craig, I think it's in the budget.
It's in the budget, which was approved by council.
Okay.
You know, we could do a separate disbursement order by municipal order probably.
I
If
think
you
that's
wanted
what
to,
was
or
asked
just
for,
make a motion.
correct? If I'm thinking right. Yeah.
I just have a quandary about it because I know it's gonna handle the outbound traffic leaving the cities. Okay, because we're gonna have 2 turn lanes going on to Buttermilk towards 75. But we're not making any changes for when people come home at night. I can just foresee, I have to come out of Rosewood, and if you try to get out of there at 5:30 at night, you wait, and you wait. It's gonna be worse. We're gonna have traffic backed up even further. What are we gonna do about handling the incoming traffic back into the city? There's no place because of the Veterans Memorial. There's no easement there to put an extra lane. I guess we're just gonna have to put up with this extra traffic on Buttermilk Pike.
They might change the timing of the lights once they put the turn lanes in. There's a possibility of them changing the timing on the lights to regulate the traffic for both directions. That's a possibility.
Okay.
I don't think, as far as Buttermilk Pike is concerned, it's always gonna be a traffic problem. It has and
Well,
it's gonna continue.
It's gonna be a worse, a big,
Right.
big.
Right.
I think you make a good point, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think everything coming back into the city
Yeah.
is in Crescent Springs until you get to the other side of the intersection on the right. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
So it'll probably fall to us to
Yeah.
figure out either on the park side or on
Something's
the Western Reserve side. What-
gotta give.
But I mean,
Well-
I'd like to, if we can, separate the two
Yeah.
and consider this, because I don't know that we can build on that project to this project and get it done before.
Well, I think one thing to keep in mind is with the split phase between Collins and Western Reserve right now, you know, from Buttermilk onto Collins into Villa Hills is a constant flow lane. I mean, that lane's always turning unless somebody's coming across from Western Reserve. And you never know when that is, you know, when your light is red on Buttermilk. Well, in the future after this project, you'll know because Western Reserve will be the only thing moving. And so that should ease some of that constant flow. I know when I drive in the morning, the big issue I have is getting past Meadowwood because there's a big stack of people trying to get through the intersection and turn left onto Meadowwood with all the people coming out of Buttermilk from Villa Hills to go straight to the interstate. And, you know, we can talk about, you know, some of those issues as well as we move forward with, you know, wider changes. But for right now, the project is moving forward. It's been designed in a particular fashion. That design is under review. And in the interest of time, I think we would want to move forward with that project.
Is there any discussion about making Collins Road 4 lanes?
Not at this time. It is a state route, and that would be dependent on the funding for the state.
Well, since you're doing a electronic light signal, wouldn't, coming from Buttermilk to Collins, since you're delaying it, have a continuous right turn light when the opportunity's there? Is that part of the plan?
I haven't, to my knowledge, no. The only arrowed lights that I knew were coming in were the other direction, coming off of Collins onto Buttermilk.
But to come from what
Right, but from
Christie's
the other
saying,
way, right.
that would alleviate a lot of flow because most of the direction is a right turn. I'm 22 years Villa Hills. And if
Oh,
you
you're
can
right.
keep moving that,
Mhm. I will mention it. It shouldn't be that much.
Okay.
Now would be the time, you know,
Yeah.
since they're.
I mean, your programming, yeah.
All right, Craig, in terms of a clock, when do you need an answer or money?
Oh, I have,
Oh, I'm sorry, Pat. go ahead.
I'm sorry, Bob. I have one other question. Okay, we're doing all this work here. Once we do this work, if there's any other work, are we responsible for the work we've done, like the light system, if something goes wrong?
No, because we're using standard KYTC equipment list, once it's in, the state will take over maintenance
Okay.
of the signal light. If we were to do something custom or decorative like they did at the new Taylor Mill and Pride Park
Yeah.
intersection, if we'd done that, then the state would have gone, yeah, that's you. But because we're only using the standards stuff that's like there now, they'll take over maintenance.
Good question.
Well, is there gonna be like a final meeting on this? Maybe somebody from Crescent Springs could be there? I don't know if you would like, we would want to, just to see how it affects us.
Definitely, we can make
Whatever
that.
you
we can
want.
make that happen.
You can do whatever you want.
Okay.
You want to be the?
I'll do it.
the representative? Okay.
Is the sanctuary a done deal? I thought there was some litigation going on still.
There is some litigation going on, and I learned a long time ago not to guess what happens with litigation.
Right.
But from the standpoint of all of the zoning approvals have been granted, and it's just simply waiting for resolution on the lawsuit. So I don't know how that plays out. I don't know whether the judge accepts it, throws it out, or if there's a settlement in the meantime that changes the project. At this point, I just don't know.
I think that we need it even without the sanctuary. We
The
need
the
to
reserves,
change.
the
Yeah, we
reserves
need to
will
change.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Answer your question.
Say it again?
When do you need the approval?
We know, obviously, we're moving forward on the project, and we're already incurring payment for bills as a result of the engineering. However, when we did the proposal to Crescent Springs, it was to cover the cost of the installation, because physically, some of the equipment that needs to be installed will physically be installed in the city of Crescent Springs. So we would need the money when those bills come due. So kind of closer to the end of the fiscal year, but we would still like to have your support.
Yeah, okay.
Put that on the February agenda. I'll have something drafted.
Okay, any other questions?
Thanks, Craig, I appreciate
No
you.
problem.
Thanks,
Last
Craig.
minute.
I'll get a hold of you and see when you have a meeting.
Great, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, any other old business? Yep, next item is new business, Wessel's Properties Incorporated. Request for the city to vacate right-of-way at 2516 Sierra due to the extension of Crescent Ridge Court being eliminated. And it shows it in a darker section here on lot 19 is the right-of-way that they're requesting we vacate. There's also one on the other side of the street that they didn't think that needed to be vacated, but it,
What's the reasoning behind it?
well, honestly, I don't know, other than it was a request, and they're building a house on lot 19.
Okay.
There was I know this much, in talking to George before he left, this is a request made by Wessels. There was a discussion that George had with them. This is what he deems to be excess right-of-way that the city can provide to assist in traffic flow, I think it is. For us to actually approve it, I need I saw this plat, but I need a legal description that Greg or someone else needs to prepare so that you know what exactly you're voting to approve on. So we can't do this tonight, but
Okay.
but this is I know this has been an ongoing discussion that George had before he left.
Right, it's not that big of a piece of land like our right away up in
Yeah,
the
it
Ritchie
looks
area.
like-
So,
Yeah, that
you
was a
know,
much
it's not,
bigger piece, yeah.
So I just wanted to bring everybody up to date on that, where it's at. And as Mike said, we'll need to get a legal description of it before we can do anything with it. Okay?
I have one thing I'd like to
right.
mention. And this again goes back to something George and I did before George left town. And I don't know to what degree that you, one of the items listed on the list of projects that the mayor handed out to everybody was that Starbucks is going to buy the US Bank building, or is buying the US Bank building on Buttermilk Pike, right down the road. And they have been having discussions with PDS about reconfiguring that property for, so that it works for them as a Starbucks rather than as a bank. And part of that requires a text amendment. Essentially, they want to have a couple tables outside. It's not I don't think it's a really big deal, but to meet what they're trying to do, it somewhat requires us to have that brought through PDS, and so we made an application to have that done, which will be heard at their February meeting. Essentially what we're asking them to approve is to have that site really be in conformity with the restrictions we have in place up by where the Tobin and Ritchie and all those places are with regard to parking, and as well as an accessory, a couple of spaces for outside tables, chairs. And I don't have the exact language, unfortunately, in front of me, or I would hand it on to you. And when I get it from Andy Videkovich, I will get that all to you.
Has anybody, unless I've just missed it, submitted plans for what the layout would look like?
It's been submitted to PDS. I haven't
We
gotten
haven't
that
seen
back
it.
from Andy, though, so.
The actual
Yes.
footprint on the lot and where
Right.
the, we'll get that from Andy then?
I will get that, and I will get that to you all.
Okay.
Yeah, hopefully before the caucus meeting. So yes, I will look at it.
All right. Okay, January 16th is our finance meeting. January 28th is our caucus meeting. And February 6th is our Events and Recreation Committee meeting. Any other comments?
21st is the Economic Development
Yes.
Committee meeting.
Okay. Sir, did you want to speak to council? Or just observing?
My son's in an AP Gov class, he has to come watch it.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
It's real exciting government, isn't it?
Okay. If there's no other business, I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Christie's made a motion, Pat second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting's adjourned.